Hello, Michael Modic here, presenting Studybuddy 3.0, Devolution, Revolution, and Evolution in Education. So what do we mean by Studybuddy 3.0? What is 3.0? 3.0 is the new development in the web, blockchain, crypto assets, and the notion that people are controlling their own data. What is devolution? Devolution is the surrender of power to a local authority. And you'll see how Studybuddy 3.0 can bring our educational credential back to our own wallets, to our own control. A little bit about me. I'm a professional educator, done a bunch of stuff. There's my portfolio if you're interested. And there's how to get in touch. And please do. So why do we need this? There are basically three environments that we tend to do most of our learning in. And we'll look at the pros and cons of each of these and how Studybuddy can address those. The first one is the classroom. Most people have their own horror stories about school. Well, the good point is that there are some very sincere and skilled teachers out there. That's about the only good point, right? It's structured and predictable, which is helpful, except that it's structured and predictable in the extreme, right? There are some resources for schools like libraries, but there's really so much stress and dissatisfaction that it's not really worth it, right? The curriculum is highly centralized, and it's also, as we've come to learn, somewhat fake. A lot of the stuff that we're taught in school isn't even true, right? And that leads to cynicism, disempowerment, and a feeling of disconnection, right? Then we have the coach or mentor type environment. And for example, learning on the job. Now that is much more effective, although it's variable, right, how well that works. It's practical, it's usually hands-on. One of the main problems, though, is the availability of the mentor. And also, in some cases, there's a power inequity with the mentor, and that can cause problems. So although it's practical, it is also very subjective, like how do you really know what you've learned? And often this relationship only is at the beginning, like for on-the-job training. Better than a classroom, but still not ideal, right? And then self-study, which most of us are doing pretty much every day, I think. So this is flexible, it's practical. It does require ourselves to be motivated and also to be self-directed, right? To know where to go. And that's the problem, right? It can be very confusing and we're not really getting any feedback. So Studybuddy is a hybrid of all of these things. It's meant to be practical, structured, predictable, authentic, objective, empowering, supportive, validating. Okay, so here are the Studybuddy components. Studybuddy brings together these three elements or components into an integrated learning experience. The first one on the top, the learning contract. The idea of a contract, it's been around for a long time. And here the idea is that if you have an actual intention to learn something that's important to you and worthwhile for you to learn a certain thing, topic X, then commit to it with two other people. That leads to the right side of these groups. You're going to check in 3 times with these 2 other people according to some kind of agreed to timeline. For example, over a 6-week period, you check in every 2 weeks for a total of 3 times. Over to the show and tell on the left side. What are you doing when you're checking in? You're doing show and tell. And show and tell is a great way to share information. It's a very holistic and qualitative way to share information. And what you're doing there is you're reporting on your learning with what we're calling a proof of progress. And you're pointing at what I learned. Here's the code that I wrote. Here's the garden that I grew, or the seeds that I planted. Here's the Spanish verbs that I memorized. Whatever it is, you're pointing at something saying, here's what I did. This is not evaluating each other. You're only checking in with each other. That's like the study buddy thing or exercise buddy. If we agree to go to the gym together, I'm not telling you I'm not there to tell you how well you're doing your push-ups. I'm just there to give you some peer support, peer pressure, let's say, as well, that we show up and do it. So each person is evaluating their own learning in this model. There's some key concepts here that really distinguish the study buddy model from other things that we've all experienced. First is in the group work aspect. Isn't it true that group work in school is often pretty dysfunctional, right? So it gets dysfunctional because you're depending on other people who may or may not be ready, willing, and able to do their part. So study buddy is not like that. It's not necessarily collaborative. It could be, but not necessarily. It's parallel. I'm learning my thing, you're learning your thing. We're in the same topic, and we can help each other, but we don't have to. So that takes off all of that pressure. You're basically there to hold the frame for each other. Second aspect is this is not learning nice to know stuff. This is competency-based, knowing how to do something. It's about evidence that you know how to do a certain thing. It's skill-based. It's not information-based, it's skill-based. And the third thing is on the assessment side, which is judging. And this is validation, not evaluation. I'm not there to give you a score. I'm only there to see, did you make some progress? Yes or no? Did you convince me? And if I think, yes, you made some progress, then I validate you. That means you did that. I say, check mark. You did that. What you do with that check mark is up to you. So here's the process, the learning process, okay? I will talk about each of these in turn: intake, orientation, agreement, the learning, and then what does that give us? Okay, so in these next slides. For the intake on our website, which has a link there below, we are getting some information about who you are, very basic, like your name and your email. What are you interested in learning? Generally, do you need this for a certificate? Do you want to use certain resources? What kind of time frame are you looking at? Very basic information. And we'll take that information and we'll populate it into a kind of directory so people can match up with other people with similar interests. And that's all we'll do with that information. The second part, so as we get at that intake information and we get people matched up and introduced, then there's a conversation between the three people with some facilitation from us where you agree on a contract. Here's what the contract looks like. It's very, very basic. Purpose of this is only to help us all follow through in our intention to learning, right? So I agree to be in a contract with you and that other person. I agree to report on my learning. I agree to make these 3 little show and tell videos. I agree to watch your videos. I agree to do them on the time that we decide, like the time frame. I also agree to do them within the length that we decide, like maybe we'll say max 10 minutes or whatever, max 5 minutes or whatever. I agree to use the questions that are provided, which are in the next frame. And then I agree not to, I agree to confidentiality or not. And all of these things are negotiable, right? But this is the general idea. If anybody wants to use this contract, they can. I'm releasing this in Creative Commons license by, which means attribute me, right? Please mention my name if you want to use this, but otherwise go ahead and use it. So here are the questions. These are reflection questions based on, believe it or not, many years of looking into reflection questions and synthesis. These questions can be used for just about any kind of learning when you think about it, right? So the first one, what's the general area? Might be Spanish, might be gardening, might be Haskell programming, right? Might be plumbing. What's the specific topic? Within that, let's say it's about getting into Cardano, and then the specific topic might be about wallets. It could get very drilled in, right? It could be a dataless wallet. It could be a dataless wallet on Linux, right? It could be as drilled in as people want to. What did you do? This is where you're pointing at, oh, here I installed Daedalus, it's running. What did you learn? Oh, I learned that it takes a long time to update. How can you use that? How can you apply that in your own life? Like in that case, well, I can, if I'm going to need a receive address, I'm going to fire up Daedalus an hour before. What did you learn about yourself? This is not necessarily deep philosophy or psychology, but often it's more like, what strategies do I want to use? What did I learn about my own process? What's good for me with this information, right? And what questions do I have now? So these are the questions, and they are very good questions. Notice none of these questions is what did I do well and what did I not do well? Those are worthwhile questions, but this question of what did you learn? That is a transformative question, and if you don't believe me, just try it. Okay, the other part of the equation here is that something happens, right? You get an outcome, first outcome on the contract. Did people finish? Did the 3 people finish their 3 artifacts on time? And depending on the contract, there would be some kind of consequences for that, up to the people involved. The other part of the contract, are we going to renew that contract? And if we want to renew it, do we want to tweak the focus, tweak the subject, and do we still want to work with those other people? So those are outcomes having to do with the contract. And then the other outcomes having to do with the artifacts. And this word artifacts is, actually it's from archaeology, right? An artifact is a thing that somebody uses for a certain task. Originally, like the stone axes, cavemen, using flint axes to cut their stuff. And so when you look at that artifact, you say, oh, the person who made this was thinking a certain thing. Like they were thinking about how to make a blade out of this stone. And therefore, I can conclude that they knew how to do that. That's what we mean by learning artifact. So these are some learning artifacts that I've made and stuff that I've been studying lately. One is about representative drawing with a pencil and paper. Here's my drawing. It's coming along. It's better than it used to be. Likewise with some exercise stuff that I'm doing. These are available later on, links for these. So these artifacts might actually be valuable, right? Depending on what the topic is and who's doing it, right? If you are interested in learning about drawing, you might want to see what I learned, even though I'm no expert, right? So this is interesting that there's actual value in everybody's learning. That's kind of one of the ideas. Okay, benefits of Studybuddy. Now that you've got the idea, we can compare to the classroom learning, the mentor model, the self-study model. And isn't it true that unlike the classroom, we're actually going to get practice, right? Because the whole idea is you go out and do the thing, right? You have to follow through with the contract, right? That contract is going to be motivating. You got to check in with those people. They're expecting you to do that. You have to get off the couch and actually do the thing, right? There's that social learning aspect. It's not required, but it's likely, right? If you're all on the same topic, you're all there to learn something, probably you will be sharing information, right? And also you'll be out there seeing what other people are doing. That's what we mean by social learning. It's not formal. Input and feedback, again, that's not necessarily part of it, but it's likely part of it. And we could add to that this piece of reflection, which is super helpful. Direction. Having these topics is some direction. Go in that direction, go in that direction. Learn about this, learn about that, which makes it easier than just doing it completely on your own, right? Predictability, as in, if I finish this contract, yes, I will actually have accomplished certain things in that area, right? Like with my drawing, I'm a better drawer than I was 2 months ago. It's really obvious. And then once you have the 3 artifacts, you can see, oh, yeah, there's progress for sure. It's pretty efficient because we're choosing our own subjects or topics. It's super flexible. That synergy, I'm seeing your artifact, you're seeing mine, and we might actually start to have an idea, oh, we could do this, we could do that, right? We could do this together. And then achievement, it's accomplishment. The validation is not only evidence that you learned it, but also, yeah, you did learn it. Like, way to go, you followed through. And even if you only did this once every 6 months or once a year, it would still be worth doing, right? Proof is in the pudding. So here's some questions. I made up most of these questions, I confess. But anyway, these are questions that I can imagine people are going to ask. So how do you know people are going to cover the topics? I think we said that you can specify more granular topics if you want. What if people don't finish? I think we addressed that. Isn't it a hassle to stop and do a reflection? Well, yeah, it is. There's two parts to that. Yes, it's more work, but compared to what? Like, compared to studying for multiple choice exams, which are meaningless, it's maybe less work than studying for exams. And it's better evidence of learning, right? And secondly, yes, it takes some time to reflect, and that's an investment. It's a way of reviewing what you've done, really bringing it home, really synthesizing, really consolidating what we've learned. And you won't appreciate this until you try it. What about a teacher? Don't you need a teacher or a mentor? Not necessarily, but you totally could have a teacher alongside of all this, right? The teacher may or may not even know about this, but if you do have a teacher and you do this alongside, you're going to be bringing back way better questions for that teacher as a result of this process, right? What if people can't make a video and upload it? You can take pictures. And actually on the links page, you'll see that for illustrative purposes, I did actually do this with pictures and text. So that's completely legit. And how do I know what kinds of topics other people are doing? Are we providing a curriculum? Yes and no. Through the intake form, we're going to build a kind of directory of what interests people are expressing. And then also, we are going to be sharing curriculum on some topics of interest having to do with crypto, for one thing. Food is another topic that people are very interested in. Wellness is another topic that people are interested in. Communication. And again, we're not providing tutorials with this. We're providing the curriculum. At some point, we'll link tutorials in the curriculum, but basically having that map is the value where we really see this. As far as blockchain goes, so this is distributed, right? And technically speaking, as far as the credential goes, there's the issuer, the holder, and the verifier. In StudyBuddy, the issuing function is actually the group. So there's not an institution issuing this as a credential. It's the group saying, yes, we saw you do that. And then the verifier doesn't go to the institution. They go to you, or you go to them. Say, here's my video of me doing this. I know how to do this, and here's the proof of that. And you are holding that yourself, right? So it could also be incentivized, right? First of all, there's a personal validation of your accomplishment, which other people, you have proof of your accomplishment. And as we said, potentially there could be income from licensing that content if you are awesomely insightful and relevant in what you learned. I got to mention that when you think about it, each of these proofs of progress is a unique thing, right? Which makes it non-fungible, which makes it perfect for an NFT, right? So the videos or the images can be minted, and that's exactly where we're going with this. That these things will be uploaded, for example, to the IPFS, and that the whole thing would be minted and then monetized somehow, especially within that community of other people who are doing StudyBuddy. Like, there are many, many possibilities for token economy with this kind of thinking about learning, right? Completely taking it out of the I pay to learn. It could be much more like, no, I get paid to learn, right? That would be cool. And then it really supports sovereignty, right? Because this evidence of learning becomes your individual digital identity. And isn't that true that what we've learned is like the best way to express who we are? I am what I've learned, right? More than anything else, more than even my name, right? Okay. So here's those links I mentioned, our website. If you want to go to the intake form, there it is. If you want some more examples, other than the examples that you see on the website, there's also another site with these proof of progress artifact examples using text and images as a different way to do it. And then there's our contact. So what's next if you're interested in doing this? So first of all, connect with yourself. What do you want to do? What do you want to learn about? What are you interested in learning? What intention do you have, right? And also, are there some other people that you already know who would want to do something along with you along these lines? You don't have to bring your own buddies along. If you want to, you can. And if you don't have people you can work with, that's okay. We will match you up based on your interests and maybe some other factors. Secondly, decide. You decide you're going to follow through on your good intention to learn something. You're going to get off the couch and make a commitment to yourself, right? That is a decision. And also decide what you want to do and maybe who you want to do it with, right? And then third, enroll. And to enroll, you start with the intake form. Okay, that's all I have for you. This is the end, and looking forward to hearing from you over at modigdev.com. Thank you very much. Michael Modig, signing out.